In other news, pay growth in Singapore hit a 4-year low in 2025, but spending power stayed strong. According to the Manpower Ministry's latest report, that's because of lower inflation. Now, total wages seen here in blue, that dropped from 5.6% in 2024 to 4.9% last year. Though, comparing that against the green line, accounting for inflation, the impact isn't so bad. Real wages rose by 4%, faster than the year before. Across all types of workers, pay increased at a similar rate. But for general employees, wage growth fell from 5.8% to 4.8%, the lowest among the groups. An analyst says this could be due to the advent of new tech.
AI that can perform action based on decisions made autonomously without human instruction. And I think this may have some impact on work needed by workers. And at the same time, this might even push wages down.
Even then, businesses performed strongly last year. More than 83% were profitable, over 2 percentage points higher than in 2024. Most reported steady or better profits, which MOM says suggests a growing share of financially stable firms. Still, fewer companies raised wages, with more choosing to keep salaries unchanged. Among firms that did increase pay, the main reason was to retain workers. As for this year, MOM says wage growth should stay positive, though employers may turn more cautious.
For this coming year, there's likely to be a push for wages to go down because there'll be pressure resulting from inflation, which will then increase the cost of doing business. Some of the commodities, the materials will be more expensive for business, and this will actually reduce their profit, which then will reduce their performance and their demand for workers, and also their ability to pay workers.
And for more analysis, we're joined by Kirsty Poltock, who is a country manager at Robert Walters Singapore. Now, Kirsty, fewer companies have raised wages in 2025 despite economic growth. Now, do you foresee that trend being maintained in 2026, especially given the global economic uncertainties?
I think that businesses are becoming more measured and rather than significantly pessimistic. So companies are currently operating in an uncertain global environment. So they're naturally taking a careful approach to costs and hiring. But I think Singapore's economy and the labour market have shown still significant resilience, particularly in sectors like innovation, technology and advanced services. So I would still expect wage growth to be moderate, rather than weaken sharply.
Yeah, the report also highlighted a widening profitability gap between the smaller and larger firms. How might cost pressures on smaller firms then affect hiring, bonuses, or even wage increases moving forward?
There's no doubt that there's a massive pressure, especially on smaller organizations, to see the productivity and the profitability that they need to see. But I think those organizations are also trying to balance retention, because ultimately, if they're unable to pay their staff certain wages, they'll be unable to retain and increase their productivity and reach their business goals. So it's a careful balance, which is why I would expect that for even smaller organizations, that wage increases would still be moderate, but trying to engage and retain their top talent.
How do we then make sure that businesses don't use global uncertainty as a blanket reason or an excuse to hold back wage increases? And how does the flexible wage system possibly address this?
I think, obviously, the geopolitical challenges that we're facing currently are widespread and ultimately cause a lot of uncertainty. But the reality is that businesses still have their goals, their profitability targets, their productivity, and they still need to move forward. And in not looking at wage inflation and looking at wage rises for their organization, there can be a big disparity that can cause quite a bit of challenges in terms of how the business will move forward over the coming years. So in my opinion, the organizations that we're speaking to, over 75% of them are still looking and planning and have already increased wages this year moderately, and will continue to do so because the focus would be on retaining the talent, especially in niche sectors.
Now, there's a lot of optimism around AI as a growth driver in Singapore, but could it actually also widen wage gaps in 2026 by then raising pay for specialized workers while also putting pressure on more routine or lower skilled roles?
I think we're seeing so much discussion about this currently in the market, and it's a really important question to answer. And I think if you look at how AI is being utilized in Singapore, in the next 12 months, what we're seeing is most companies are still experimenting with AI tools rather than redesigning entire job functions. So it's less about having new professions appearing overnight, but more about existing roles becoming more AI augmented. For example, in a marketing professional or a financial analyst or a supply chain manager, those that are able to use AI effectively can produce significantly more output. So I think in terms of widening the gap, I think organizations are absolutely trying to experiment with AI to help make the organization more productive and their people more productive, but more enhance the roles within the organization, not eliminate them. But of course, AI will certainly reshape jobs and skills in demand. But Singapore is actually relatively well positioned to manage this transition because of our strong focus on upskilling and the workforce adaptation.
Yeah, so what would then need to happen for wage growth in 2026 to be better than 2025?
It's a really good question. I think the biggest driver would be productivity growth. If businesses continue to move into higher value activities and workers continue to upgrade their skills, I think that creates more room for healthier, more sustainable wage increases. Obviously, Singapore also benefits from strong tripartite corporate cooperation between the government, employers and workers, which has obviously historically helped the country to navigate periods of economic transition quite effectively. I think, though, gone are the days of market-wide increments. And if we're looking at wage growth being more specific to job roles and industries, then of course talent at the front, looking at the most evolving job types would be likely to get higher wage increments. But I still think there will be a focus on trying to have a broader approach to wage increments overall across the industries.
Kirsty, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. That was Kirsty Poltock, who is a country manager at Robert Walters Singapore.